Good morning. It's Wednesday, February the 19th. I hope everyone is well. I'd like to take a few minutes and talk about where we are in the course, where we've been, where we are, and what it remains to be done. I'm speaking basically in reference to the notes that I posted on Friday last week, February the 14th. Speaking specifically about practice assignment 3 in those notes, but referring back to the previous practice assignments, particularly practice assignment 2. So I'll kind of walk through that for a minute, and I want to point out 2 or 3 places in the textbook that you might want to be paying some close attention to as we move into spring break and what's coming up afterwards to get the mixed methods proposal finished. And of course there is the syllabus and the outlines of things there. So also take a look at the new Blackboard site. I'm sure you've been up there, although not so much in the discussion, but that you've been up there, and take a look at what kind of resources are out there that you can kind of help frame your paper. First, let's talk about the notes. Practice assignment 3 is about the research question, the one or more hypotheses and statements of significance that you will draft for your for comment by all of us. Hopefully you can get these posted in a way that all 4 of us, including me, can comment on that as colleagues and give you each of you some advice or consultation, some suggestions, a critique of what you're thinking at this point in terms of research questions. So we go back and we think about the research questions. Let's just say, I was just thinking of one that was done, not one of ours, but one that was done a year or so ago, where the student was doing she did a qualitative study on stress of emergency responders in Houston, and selected a small number of emergency responders, selecting some from fire department, some from police department, and emergency medical systems, and all of the services and all of that. Not a large group, 8 maybe or 12 if I remember correctly, and to see is there stress, and to see, as she had this conversation, could she see any variation in stress on the part of these individuals, some more stress than others and all of that sort of thing. So what she did for the second part was a mixed methods model. She had done the exploratory design to discover whether there's stress, and she expected that there would be from the literature, and to what extent did that stress vary. Did it vary by category of responder, fire department, EMS, and that sort of thing? Or was it individual variation? Just to kind of begin to think about that. And then when she came to the second semester, 6316, she reframed it as a quantitative study, and the Y, or the response variable, the variation, she did see variation in stress. Why did that variation in stress occur? And that would be the Y, and then you'd step across the equal sign to the X's on the other side of the equation as the factors that most likely will explain what that stress is. And she did find some stress variation by category, and she also found stress at the level of individual. And then in the level of individual, there were issues about have you been to training on stress or not, and things like that. So anyway, what she used the qualitative study for was to examine whether there was variation in her outcome research question. Was there in fact variation in stress? And then listen to what people said in that qualitative study and use those comments to frame the right-hand side of the equation, the X's, of factors that she thinks might have explained that. And then from there, she developed a questionnaire for the proposal that would have been a questionnaire that she would have sent to a random sample of emergency responders in the city of Houston. Maybe some 1,000 of them, some by, categorize, do a stratum, sort of a stratified sample, a certain number of firefighters, a certain number of EMS, a certain number of police, and that sort of thing. So that's how she developed this. And so that's what you think back in terms of your qualitative study. What was the question you were wanting to ask? And look at the variation that you see as you did that qualitative study and interviewed a handful of people to test your instrument for that you used, your interview guide. So from that you would recast that interview guide into a more extensive survey, maybe 10, 12, 15 questions. And in those questions would be not only questions that would lead to factors of stress, are you stressed or not, and maybe a scale of very stressed as not so stressed and all of that, but you would also include things that you found in the interview guide that you think are factors that explain the variation that you discovered in your research question. So there would be questions in the interview guide, like for example in her paper, what are you a member of fire department, or that sort of thing. Have you had training on stress? What is your age, thinking that maybe younger guys would be, or younger people would be more likely to be stressed because they're new in it, and an older person, a more mature person in the profession might be less stressed. So she put factors on the right hand side to explain what the variation on the on the left hand side, the y equals x. You might have y equals x1, x2, x3. You might have a number of x's over there. Remember, this is a proposal. So what you want to do is you want to, as clearly as you can, state your research question, and then your hypotheses are those things, x's on the right-hand side of the equation. These are the things that I think are influencing the variation in y. So you want to state those as your hypotheses. And then the statements of significance are what's the point of the study. In her case, let's say, excuse me, the point of the study was, were she to do this, she could offer it, let's say, as a resource to the city of Houston as some factors that might account for the stress that's going on amongst emergency responders, and that the X factors are things that the city needs to address to modify that variation in stress among the responders. So that would be the statement of significance in her case, and there'll be one or more statements of significance in your case as well. So think your way through on that, and write something up for assignment 3, post it, send it to me, or post it, and I'll go in and take a look. We can all take a look, and then put it in the discussion. The discussion thread is to talk about your research question, your hypotheses, hypotheses are how your X's are going to explain your Y, and your statements of significance. So get those in there. Practice assignment 2 was the background, and that should already be posted. The background, how you got into this question, why is it of interest to you, and that sort of thing. Sort of a biographical piece about why this thing is of interest and consequence to me. So that's where you should be at this point. And when I look at the course calendar here, this goes on through March the 14th, which is after spring break, the end of spring break. So assignment 2 and assignment 3. So get those things posted, get into the thread, and let's get on with the conversation. I think after March the 7th, let's see, this says March the 14th, but anyway, it's due Friday, March the 7th, your research questions and all. So that's coming up a week from this Friday. Then and then we'll move into data and sampling. At that point, since we're not going to actually do this, but we are going to want to walk our way through what sampling, probability sampling is about, what would be a good number that we'd want to use in terms, if we were to do this, how many people would we want to ask. We'll walk our way through that after spring break so that you can lay that out. Okay? And then come about March the 29th, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, you write the proposal. But if this is working correctly, already you're working, by the time you get your research questions, your background, your data, you'll have most of it done by the time we get to that. So let's look at the text. I'm suggesting that you use the exploratory method. Now, you may decide you want to do something else, but you've got to put the rationale of why you're doing that. Just if you were even if you were going to do the exploratory, you have to do the rationale. Why I'm choosing exploratory and why does it fit? Why I'm doing explanatory and why does it fit? Whatever one you choose. I'm suggesting exploratory, but you don't have to do that. It's not a requirement. All right, so you'll see in Chapter 4 there's some examples of mixed methods that you can use as a reference as you think your way through, is this particular design going to fit what I want? And then chapter 5 is writing a mixed methods title, stating the research problem in the introduction. Here we go. The purpose statement. There you are. Writing your research questions and hypotheses. It's all laid out here. A very handy reference for you to consult as you begin to put this together, assignment 3, and put it out there in discussion for commentary by your colleagues, which include me. And then I wanted to point out in chapter 6, collecting data in mixed methods research. This is on down the road a little bit. This is after we get back from spring break. But you'll see that, again, Creswell and Clark have this laid out for you. For example, if you use exploratory design on page 87, collecting data in mixed methods research, exploratory design. Who and how many individuals, how to describe, all of that sort of thing is laid out for you here that you can use to outline your proposal. It's perfect. And then when you come over to chapter 7, I want to draw your attention to page 212, chapter 7, analyzing and interpreting data. Now, we won't have data to analyze and interpret, but you want to reach into the future as though you were going to do this. And if I do this, this is the considerations I'm going to think about when the data come back to me. So you want to reach into the future in terms of what you would do with the data were you to actually do this proposal. So you have to reach out. So take a look at chapter 7, and particularly that data analysis and interpretation within mixed methods design, page 212. Pay some attention to that. And then chapter 8 is about writing and evaluating mixed methods research. General guidelines for writing, relating the structure of your proposal to mixed methods design. Everything is there for you in terms of reference in this text. So use the text as your guide. So that's all I have to say about this, and I look forward to reading your research questions, hypotheses, and significances, your background. If you want to reconsider or rewrite in some way what you may have already posted or what you are writing based on what you see here, do look at these things in here. I think it'll make it much easier for you than you just sit there on your own and try and generate something at your computer. If you've got this book open and you're addressing the issues in the sequence that he offers, he and Clark offer, then it'll make it much easier. So anyway, it's Wednesday, and I hope you're doing well. There's a weekend coming up. Be safe out there. I look forward to encountering you in discussion. You take care.